Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another video. Um, it's a really cold day, so I'm all zipped up in my big old thick jacket. So today I want to make a video about this book, Lifespan, Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to, by David Sinclair. So, the title of that book in and of itself, when it says why we age and why we don't have to, that obviously is going to catch people's attention. I know it caught my attention when I saw it in the bookstore because obviously we all have to age. We can't just, go on being the same age forever. Age seems to just be a part of, living a natural life. And ultimately, after reading this book, I do feel that that's not the best title for this book, because ultimately, in this book, the author is not offering us immortality or a solution that's going to grant us immortality. This book is not about how we are going to stop aging or end aging to the point where we no longer age as individuals. We're always going to age. What this book is offering is it's offering some insight into how potentially, with more time, with more patience, and with more research, science may eventually in the future be able to make breakthroughs that allows us to drastically slow the aging process, um, and in the process extend the average human lifespan by decades. Right now, I think the average human lifespan is still at like 80. Um, but this author is claiming that if scientific research into aging continues, which in this book he actually talks about and says that aging research and science is, really making advancements, and that reputable scientists from all over the world meet, I think, like every month to talk about the advancements that are happening in aging research, where they can eventually like really slow down the aging process. And if this stuff works the way that it looks like it might work, um, in the not too distant future, we might be able to extend the human lifespan from 80 to something like 100 or 115 or 130, which sounds crazy. Um, and initially, the first reaction a person might have is, no, that sounds terrible. Like, I don't want to live to be 100 or 130, because obviously as we get really, really old, our bodies become, less durable. Um, we're weaker. We need people to help us out and take care of us. Life really isn't the same after a certain age. So it's kind of like, if life isn't the same at 80, do you really want to live another 20 to 50 more years? Doesn't that seem like a little overkill? Haven't you already lived your best years? But David Sinclair, the author, he argues and says that, such a concern, one, is valid, because obviously you don't want to have this very long lifespan and have a really bad life in terms of what you can do and just the quality of life. But the author says that the same kind of research that would look into increasing the human lifespan, because the lifespan is how long in terms of length, how long your life is, that the same research that's looking into increasing the human lifespan is also looking into increasing the human health span. Meaning that if the researchers can actually extend the human lifespan to like 100 or 130, something like that, then they're also going to be able, potentially, they'll be able to also extend the human health span, meaning you won't feel like you can't move at age 100. You'd actually would feel really good at age 80. You might feel like you're 60 years old when you're 100 years old. You might feel, really good. And it's kind of funny to think about this and even like say it, but like if we can actually make these advancements, it would be possible, where you would feel good at like age 115 or something. You have to obviously be skeptical, because, you know, is it really going to be the case that we can live to be that old? I have no idea. This is outside of my domain of knowledge. I don't really know much about biology, and this is a biology-based book about how to increase the human lifespan. But, um, you know, one of the things this book talks about, and something that I do believe, is before you eventually accomplish something, or like as a, as humanity, eventually, before we tend to accomplish some great thing like landing on the moon or inventing airplanes, just the technological advancements we're making as humans. If you had looked back years and years ago and talked about how right now on this phone that I have, I can make phone calls, I can record videos, and I can upload them to something like YouTube where everyone in the world can see. I mean, just 40 years ago, that would have been like mind-blowing, but here we are. And you guys are watching this video with all of these advancements that have been made by technology. So, when it comes to the advancements of science, thinking about extending the human lifespan to live over 100 years old, it sounds crazy. It sounds insane. It sounds like something that might be, unfathomable. But with time and with research and with more work and more innovation, something that sounds crazy or far-fetched actually could potentially become a reality when you really think about it. So, is it a big idea? Yeah. Is it kind of far-fetched? Yeah. But far-fetched things with enough time and with enough work and with enough innovation end up becoming reality. So I'm optimistic because, I mean, if you could tell me that I could live to be 100 years old and, not be falling apart, by age 80, but like still have good, healthy, enjoyable years, you know, before I die, then that would be awesome. Sure, I'll take an extra 20 years from my life. Who wouldn't want to do that? So this book is broken down into different parts, and the first part is about the science behind what he's talking about. So like the research and like the biology behind how we can advance the human lifespan. And I'm not really going to go into that in this video. If you're interested in that, you can pick up the book and you can read it, because I mean the biology is a little complex and I don't really know too much about that stuff. Even after I read the book, there's still certain things I'm kind of like, I'm just trying to understand it the best I can. But essentially what I will say is that, he talks about certain studies that have been done on things like yeast, which when you think about yeast, you're like, research on yeast and aging. But the thing about yeast is it actually shares like 70% of our DNA, and yeast can age very rapidly. Like yeast can age within like the span of a week, like really rapidly. Like yeast can age a lot over a week, whereas humans, obviously, we age over a longer period of time. But yeast makes good participant for something like this, because you can actually look and see, okay, if this can stop or at least slow down aging, then we can do it on yeast, and within a week we'll see the effects, and if it does actually help reduce aging. So they've done research on yeast. They've done research on like mice and rodents and monkeys and different stuff. And what they found is they have this idea of what they call longevity genes, or sirtuins, and these are some things that may be playing a role in aging. So essentially, the idea is that with the research they've done in these different areas, there's some research that suggests that if we learn how to utilize uh, certain kinds of things in biology, we may be able to tweak our DNA or our bodies in a way where we can actually, live much longer and slow down the aging process by a lot in humans. Now, that all sounds good, or at least most of it sounds good. Maybe there are people who don't want to live longer, even if they do have quality years and they're not in pain and not super, super brittle, right? But even for those who say that sounds good, there are still very serious problems you have to think about when you think about us living that long. So the first problem that comes to mind is careers. Because if people plan on retiring at 65, if we live to be 130 years old, 65 is like only like halfway there. You just you're only like halfway through life at that point. So you can't retire at 65 anymore. You're going to have to work for decades and decades and decades and decades more. You're going to have to continuously reinvent yourself in your career. You're going to have to continuously, put forth and, just more decades of work. And that doesn't always sound so appealing to many people. Many people are like, I got to work for 50 more years. A lot of people don't even like their job to begin with. You tell them they got 50 more years of it, they're not going to be too happy about that, right? So that's one thing just to think about in terms of retirement and career and social security and being able to provide for people who have retired, but they're living and living and living and living. So something like extending the human lifespan, not only would it obviously change our lives in terms of the length of our lives, but it would also change our lives in terms of how we think about our career, how we think about taking care of people who are retired. It kind of drastically changes everything that we think about with just that alone. Then you have the problem of overpopulation, because if we're living longer and we're still reproducing and we're still having kids, the problem is now you're going to have less and less room and less resources. And in this day and age where climate change is already a problem, where things like, everybody is extending, in a situation where a lot of people are already consuming more than they really should in order to actually live an environmentally healthy lifestyle. Having more people consuming over time on the planet all at the same time is going to have a lot of detrimental effects on the environment and on the planet. Even more overconsumption than we initially had. That's another problem. So, those are things that even if we could extend the human lifespan, those are all problems that we could still run into and issues that we could still have. And the author, Dr. Sinclair, he thinks those are all valuable things to consider. He's not like, brushing that off as like, oh, that's, who cares? We'll just extend the human lifespan and there's no problems to think about at all. But while he does believe that those are issues that require a lot of attention and thinking, he is optimistic that humans will use innovations in technology and society to allow us to adapt to those kinds of scientific advancements. And he points out, times in history where, for example, when people were saying that the Earth was already getting too overpopulated, like hundreds of years ago, inventions like the sewage system and other inventions made it so that more people could still live on the planet without exhausting its natural resources. So his answer is he is optimistic that human innovation, not only will human innovation allow us to live longer, but human innovation can also allow us to, learn how we're going to live on this planet with those advancements. So hopefully he's right, because that seems to be like a glaring issue if we could extend the human lifespan. Which I would like to extend the human lifespan because, yeah, I would like to live longer as long as the years are quality years. But I don't think that, I do think that the problems of overpopulation and, like I said before, career, those are all things that you have to take into consideration. But overall, I really enjoyed reading this book. This book is really, really cool. I would definitely recommend this book to anyone who likes to read about, the future, like what the future could be like. Anybody who likes to learn more about, innovation in terms of how science, scientific innovation can change the world and where we might be headed, I would recommend you read this book. Should you believe everything you read in this book? No, I don't think so. I think that you need to have a little skepticism. Even the author has some skepticism, but he's pretty confident. And he runs a lab at the Harvard Medical School. And this is just one lab in the world that he says that right now they do research and they do work every single day. It's a lab filled with reputable scientists who do work looking into how we can extend the human lifespan. And he argues and he says in his book that this is becoming more and more accepted in the scientific community that with some time, it's going to happen. That with some time, it is going to be the case that we are going to live longer. And he's pretty confident. So, I mean, could it happen? I think it could happen, but I'm, you know, it might be the case that he's a little overconfident and maybe he isn't taking other factors into consideration. So, anyway, I'm excited to see what happens as time goes on. This book has actually, I guess motivated me to like kind of like look up what's happening in the science of aging as time goes by and just kind of keep my eye on like, okay, like what new stuff are they finding? What new studies are being done? Because now this book's left me like a little curious as to how this is gonna continue forward and where it's gonna take us. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section what you think about this idea. Do you think that eventually humans will be able to live a lot longer? Do you want to live longer, or does the idea of living to be 120 or 150 like scare you or sound really bad or something? Is it too much time to you, or are you excited? Are you pumped to potentially live to be like that old? Are you like excited about it? So let me know in the comment section what you think. If you know somebody who likes to think about extending the human lifespan, or someone who just loves science and innovation in general, let them know about this video, let them know about this book. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.